So today I'm going to talk about the effects of exams, and this is from my blog from a couple of weeks ago. So first I'll tell you why I chose this topic, and then I'll go into a bit of research which I'll touch on emotionally and behaviourally, how they affect us, and I'll also discuss some of the effects on the immune system. And then I'll try and suggest a couple of ways to overcome these effects of exams. So why I chose this topic is it's one of my last couple of weeks' blogs, and it's the previous blog to this I'd focused on entrance and exit exams. So like entrance exams to get into university and exit exams to graduate from high school. And I discussed that entrance exams can increase competition between students, whereas exit exams can force low achievers to drop out of school without graduating because they can't pass the final exam. And I also mentioned that I don't feel as if these kind of exams are a great way to represent a student's true abilities, because they're under so much pressure because it's their future that is lying on these exams. So I wanted to try and see if we are getting realistic results from these exams. And I came across some research by Spangler, Peckham, Kramer and Hoffman in 2002. And they conducted 2 experiments to see how students cope with exams emotionally and behaviourally. So they measured 5 emotional traits, which were anxiety, hopelessness, anger, joy and hope. And I think these are a bit unbalanced because there's 3 that are negative and there's only 2 that are positive. So if you're measuring more negative aspects, you're going to get a more negative response. And they also measured coping styles as well, which were problem-focused, emotion-focused and avoidant coping. So in the first experiment, they had a questionnaire before and after the exam, which they discussed these traits in. And in the second experiment, it was event-based. So they had a semi-structured interview about these same traits. And results from both of them, which I found quite interesting, was that negative emotions were high before exams, which is what we expect because people feel more anxious before an exam. But positive emotions increased during the exam and then reached the highest level after the exam. And I found this quite interesting because I never thought about an exam being positive, but when I took time to think about it, I thought more about short answer exams and essay writing exams, that if a question comes up that you've revised well and you feel you know about well, you feel more confident about your performance in the exam. So another piece of research that I found was by Kang, Coe, McCarthy and Eschler in 1997. And they tested 87 high school students, and they were required to keep a diary for 2 weeks about aspects of their health. They were also required to give 3 blood samples, which were given in the middle of the semester and before an exam and after an exam. And the results showed that even students who do not feel particularly nervous, all the students, there was significant immunological changes, and they did say that these tend to revert to baseline, but I highlighted in my blog that the words tend to are a bit, well, conspicuous in a way, because does that mean that not everyone reverts back to baseline? Does that mean that not everyone, these are temporary effects, there could be more long-lasting? So if this happens to all students, even if they're not nervous, how are the more nervous students coping if these changes are happening, and what effect does that have on their actual exam grades? So are these exams worth the negative aspects in those that are more nervous, because they could be more long-lasting than what this research shows. So are there ways to overcome these effects that we are more associated before an exam? Malafi and Damodaran in 1999 suggested that if we're put under the optimal amount of stress, then we're going to perform at our best. But if the stress is too much and the pressure before an exam is too much, we can develop stress-induced disorders. So they did a piece of research with medical students to see if yoga could benefit with reducing these anxiety and stress-related behaviours. And they found, they used the Spielberger's anxiety scale to assess students' anxiety. So it's a self-report measure. And they found that there was significant reduction of stress and anxiety in those who had completed the yoga sessions compared to those in the control group. And also, there was a significant decrease in exam failures with those who had done the yoga as well. And they reported to feel better within themselves and that they could concentrate better in their exams. So they kind of concluded that yoga can help to reduce stress levels, and this can even happen the day of an exam. So you go into an exam feeling more positive about your performance. So my conclusions are that exams can cause stress and anxiety, but if we didn't have these anxiety and stress before an exam, would that mean that people who didn't feel anxious, does that mean that they don't care as much about their exam and won't put as much effort in? Or is it just that they feel more confident with their revision skills that they've done and feel more confident anyway because they feel like they know the material better? I also just suggested that anxiety can increase effort, because if you're anxious about something, you tend to put in the extra work to try and overcome it, and you feel like, so if there's an exam that you're not sure on one particular area on, you'll try and work harder at that area to try and bring it up to the quality of the other areas of the exam. So there are ways to reduce stress, and research has shown that yoga can be a way to reduce stress. And in my blog that I've just done, I focused on mindfulness is also a way that we can reduce stress in general, which could help us with our performance on exams. So I do think that exams can increase stress, but if we did not feel anxious, we may not put the extra effort in. But there are stress reduction methods which could make this process easier. And yes, exams can be tough, but I do think that they have a place in our education, but it is questioned whether we can assume a student's true ability from an exam, because they may not be performing at their best due to anxiety and stress. So, any questions? No, that's okay then.